Tracer, we are going to be looking at how to configure a multi-building configuration where we got multiple buildings and we have multiple floors on one building. So we're really, as you see, we're building step by step from what we've done previously. Previously, like I said, we've had we started with the first floor with 2 subnets there. Then we went and we added the second floor, and then we connected those 2 routers together. Now we're going to add a second building. Okay, this is a warehouse. Like I say, her operations is growing and needed a separate warehouse. This requires its own subnetwork as well as a router to support that subnetwork. Now we have to get all 3 of these routers talking to each other. This is where now we're going to move away from static routes and move into dynamic routes. We're going to set up a EIGRP dynamic routing protocol. Okay, but the first thing we need to do, because if we look at router 1, the only thing that's programmed that's programmed into router 1 is the 2 gigabit interfaces for the 2 subnets, the .1 subnet and the .65 subnets. That's on the delivery and kitchen. So let's go into this router. Some things we're going to need to do to this router to get it up and running. Go into configure. And there we go. Let's get back to the beginning. So we're at the router, and let's go to the configure mode. And one of the first things we want to do is going to assign IP addresses to the serial interfaces. Now, if you look up here, I have a table, right? And what this table is, it's taken from I just put it here to make it easier to read. But this is the network architecture diagram that lays out all the IP addresses. So this is an excerpt out of this. Basically, this is showing how the 3 routers, the 2 interfaces on all 3 routers, which IP addresses that they will use so they can talk to each other in those IP address pairs. So like I say, we got router 1, router 2, and router 3, both interfaces. And you see how they're paired up, right? Because what's going to happen, the interface of this router 1, is going to talk to a corresponding interface on router 2, and router 2 a corresponding interface on router 3, and likewise router 3 a corresponding interface on router 1. So like I say, I just put this in here so it makes it a little bit easier for you guys to see. So now we're going to go in and start configuring the interfaces. The first interface we're going to configure is the S01 interface. Okay, so I'm going to put the IP address of 192.168.10, and the 010 interface is going to have .201, and that's going to be on the S0/1/ and I'm sorry, got ahead of myself, and the subnet mask of 255.255.255, and these are all .252, CIDR of 30, which gives you 4 IP addresses, 2 assignable. Okay. Also, while we're here, we're going to set the clock rates. So we're going to put the clock rate to 20,000, 200,000. All right, so we set up the clock rate. Now we're going to do a no shut, which would turn that interface on. Okay, so how do we know that's working? We don't, because one of the things we need to be able to do is wire up, do the cabling of these 3 routers together. So we're going to go down here and grab our serial DCEs. We're going to use those DCE cables. So click on that. So we're going to go to serial 010 and of router 1, and from there we're going to go to the 011 of router 2. There, you see it greened up. All right, grab another cable. Go from the 010 of router 2 to the 011 of router 3. These were already pre-configured, so it greened up as well. And now the last time we'll do that again, another cable. Go from the 010 on router 3, and the only one that should be available, yeah, there it is, the 011 on router 1. Now you see this has not been configured yet, so there, so it did not turn green on it for us. Okay, so now let's go back to the router, and we're going to do the same thing. Let's exit, and now we're back to the config, and now we're going to configure interface S01 1. Okay. All right, so we're to the interface configuration mode, and we're going to give it an IP address of 192.168.10. Okay, so this is router 1, and it's going to have .205 because it's talking to another pair. Okay, and the subnet mask 255.255.252. And the same thing with the clock rate. Okay. Well, so as you see, I cannot input a clock rate on this particular interface because this interface is not the DCE interface. The other end of the cable, this is the DCE. So the clock rate on this router has to be set. So that's what that's telling us right there, which is not a problem. All right, so now we're going to do a no shut, and we'll take a quick peek at the clock rate on this router as well, since we are sitting here, since we are here already. So yep, it's set to 200. All right, so we're good there. And if we look at the clock rates we've got here, 200. Yep. All right, so like I say, that's the error you're going to get when you try to apply it to a non-DCE connection. Okay, so we got everything wired up, and if we look at, let's do a show run, see what we got. See what our interface, see what our router, this is router 1 we're on. There's the 2 gigabit. There's the serial interfaces. All right, now you see what we still have here? We still have the static routes on this router. Now, before we load EIGRP or a dynamic route, we want to get rid of these static routes. Now, these static routes, as you see, is on network 96 and network.112. Okay, so all we're going to do here is go back into the configuration mode. And this is where we'll just use the command no. If you use no in front of pretty much any command, it will delete that command you're like IP route. If you just put no in front of that, no IP route, and all the same information, 192.168.10.96, 255.255.255.240, and it's on the S010. Okay, that one should be gone, and we do the same thing again to take the other one out. No IP route 192.168.10.12 255.255.255.248, and it's on the same interface, S010. Okay, now we've taken those out. Now what we're going to do is, now that we've taken those static routes out, now what we can do is load the EIGRP, the dynamic routing protocol. Very simple to do. We're going to stay in the config mode. Okay, and what we're going to type is router, and then the protocol EIGRP, and then from there we're just going to make up a network number. Okay, and I'm going to use 100. It could be any number, but the only thing, the same number has to be loaded in all the routers. Since I've already pre-loaded router 2 and router 3 with 100, we'll stay with 100 for router 1. Now that takes me into the router config, and this tells us now what the network address for this EIGRP network is going to be. So it's going to be 192.168.10. I'm going to put .0. So what this is saying is that any router that is in the group, in the EIGRP group of 100, that has a that is in the 192.168.10.0 domain will be a part of this group. So all the routers we're going to load that exact these two exact same lines into. Now you see what happens once I do that, because I've already configured router 2 and router 3. It is looking out and it is finding its neighbors. So it found 206, all right, which is router 3, and it also found 202. Okay, 202, which is router 2. So it instantly, automatically, it found its neighbors on these two paths right there. So that is really in a nutshell. And so let's exit, and let's exit one more time, and we're going to do a show run so you can see what it looks like. If I can spell show run. Nothing changes here. And there is our EIGRP group and network. Okay, there we have it. So now we have set up a routing protocol across all three of these routers. And so now all three routers are able to talk to each other. They are able to look at their neighbor tables and the global tables and build routes for each that no matter which router it needs to go to, they all know how to talk to each other. All right, there you go. EIGRP and how to get those three routers and all these networks connected together.